If you're over 60 and you're taking a handful of vitamins every morning because you want to stay strong, I respect that, I really do. Taking your health seriously at this stage of life is exactly the right instinct. But here's the problem. Some of what's in that pill organizer, it's not helping your legs. It might actually be making things worse. And the frustrating part is that these aren't obscure supplements nobody's heard of. These are vitamins that are heavily marketed to people your age, sitting on every pharmacy shelf, often recommended by well-meaning friends or even outdated advice. And for a lot of people over 60, they're quietly working against the very thing you're trying to protect. Leg strength after 60 is not a small thing. It's not vanity. It's not just about the gym. It's about whether you can get up off the floor if you fall, whether you can climb stairs without holding the railing with both hands, whether you stay independent or whether you start needing help with things you've been doing on your own your entire life. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually happening to your legs after 60. Because once you understand this, the vitamin problem starts to make a lot more sense. There's a process called sarcopenia. It's the gradual age-related loss of muscle mass and muscle strength, and it starts earlier than most people think, around your late 30s actually, but it's slow enough that you don't really notice it for a long time. Then you hit 60, 65, 70, and suddenly it accelerates. We're talking about losing somewhere between 1 and 2% of your muscle mass every single year after 60. And in your legs, where the biggest muscle groups in your body live, that adds up fast. And this is what most people don't understand about that process. It's not just about how much muscle you have, it's about how well your muscles are actually functioning. Muscle quality. The ability of the muscle fibers to fire when you need them to recover, to stay responsive. And that quality is heavily influenced by what's going on at the cellular level, your nerves, your circulation, your inflammation levels, your hormone balance. This is where vitamins come in, and this is where it gets complicated. The supplement industry has done a very good job of convincing people over 60 that more is better, that if a little vitamin D is good, a lot of vitamin D is great. That if you're feeling weak, you probably have some kind of deficiency and you need to fill it. And look, sometimes that's true. Genuine deficiencies are real and they matter. But here's what that messaging leaves out entirely. Several vitamins, when taken in the wrong form, at the wrong dose, or without the right nutritional balance alongside them, don't just fail to help your muscles, they actively interfere with muscle function. Some block the absorption of minerals your muscles depend on. Some cause nerve damage in the legs that gets mistaken for normal aging. Some pull calcium out of the places it needs to be and dump it where it causes problems. And some create a kind of toxic buildup that the body, especially the aging body, can't clear efficiently. And the foods angle makes this worse. Because some of the same foods that are marketed as healthy choices for seniors are either blocking the nutrients your legs actually need, or they're spiking inflammation in the muscle tissue in ways that accelerate that sarcopenia process. You're taking vitamins that aren't working, eating foods that are undermining the whole thing, and wondering why your legs feel weaker every year. The first vitamin on this list is one that's going to catch a lot of people off guard. It's vitamin E. Now, before you close the video, hear me out. Vitamin E is not bad for you. In the right amounts from food, it's genuinely important. But high-dose vitamin E supplements, and we're talking about the megadose versions, the 400 IU, 800 IU capsules that are everywhere. Those are a different story when it comes to your legs. Here's what's actually going on. Your muscles, when they're working hard or rebuilding after activity, produce something called oxidative stress. And here's the part the supplement industry doesn't advertise, that oxidative stress is not purely a bad thing. It's actually part of the signal your body uses to say, something was stressed here, build it back stronger. It's a trigger for muscle adaptation and muscle repair. High-dose vitamin E floods that system with antioxidants, and what it ends up doing is muffling that signal, blunting it. There was research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They gave people antioxidant supplements, including vitamin E, during an exercise program, and found that the supplements actually prevented the normal health-promoting adaptations that exercise is supposed to trigger. The people taking the supplements were working out just as hard, but their muscles weren't adapting the way they should have been. For someone in their 30s with otherwise healthy muscle tissue, that might not be a big deal. For someone over 60 who's already fighting that 1 to 2% annual muscle loss, that blunted adaptation signal is something you really can't afford. The food connection here is worth knowing too. Foods naturally high in vitamin E, almonds, sunflower seeds, avocado, those are fine. Great actually. The problem is almost always supplemental. So if you're currently taking a high-dose vitamin E capsule, that's the conversation to have with your doctor. The second one is B6. And this one genuinely concerns me more than the first. Vitamin B6, also called pyridoxine, is in almost every B-complex supplement on the market, and B-complex supplements are hugely popular with people over 60, often taken for energy, brain health, nerve function. All legitimate reasons. But here's the catch that almost nobody mentions when they're selling you that supplement. High-dose B6 causes peripheral neuropathy. That means nerve damage, specifically in the hands and feet, but often traveling up into the legs. We're talking about numbness and tingling that comes and goes, a weakness you can't quite explain, balance problems, a feeling that your legs aren't quite responding the way they should, and this isn't a rare side effect at extreme doses. The NIH's own data puts the tolerable upper limit for B6 at 100 milligrams per day for adults. A lot of the B-complex supplements sitting on pharmacy shelves contain 50, 75, sometimes 100 milligrams of B6 per capsule. Take one of those daily for a year, 2 years, and you are right at or above the threshold where nerve damage starts to accumulate. I see this pattern constantly. Someone comes in, they're active, they're doing the right things, but their legs feel unreliable, weak in a way they can't quite explain. They've had their muscles checked, their joints looked at, everything comes back fine. And then you look at their supplement list and there's a high-dose B-complex they've been taking every single day for 2 years. That's not a coincidence. The nerve damage from B6 toxicity is often reversible if you catch it early and stop the supplement. But if it goes on long enough, some of that damage can become permanent. And because the symptoms look so much like what people expect from aging, oh, my legs are just getting weaker, that's normal, a lot of people never make the connection. Check your B-complex. Look at the label. If the B6 content is above 10 or 20 milligrams, that's worth a conversation with your doctor, especially if you've been taking it long term. This next one is probably the most counterintuitive thing in this entire video. It's high-dose vitamin D. I know what you're thinking. Vitamin D is supposed to be good for muscles. You've probably heard it recommended a dozen times. And here's the thing. You're not wrong. Genuine vitamin D deficiency is extremely common in people over 60, and correcting it makes a real difference for muscle strength and bone health. The research on that is solid. But this is where the more is better trap closes on people. Because what happens at very high doses, and we're talking about the 5,000 IU, 10,000 IU supplements that have become trendy, is a completely different story. When you flood your system with vitamin D, your body dramatically increases calcium absorption from your gut. That sounds good. But this is the part that almost never gets explained. Vitamin D on its own doesn't direct that calcium where it needs to go. That job belongs to vitamin K2, which most people over 60 are not taking alongside their D. Without K2 in the picture, that extra calcium doesn't reliably go to your bones and muscles. It ends up depositing in soft tissues, in blood vessel walls, in joints, in places where it causes stiffness, impaired circulation, and reduced muscle function. And there's more. At genuinely high doses, vitamin D can tip you into a state of mild hypercalcemia, too much calcium in the blood. The symptoms are easy to miss. Fatigue, muscle weakness, a heaviness in the legs that doesn't go away. Most people chalk it up to aging. Their doctor might not even check their vitamin D levels unless they ask. But that low-grade calcium imbalance is quietly undermining the leg strength they're taking the supplement to protect. And what makes this so frustrating? The person in this situation is doing everything they think is right. They're taking their vitamin D every day. They might be exercising, they're trying, and their legs are still getting weaker, and they don't understand why. Some of them have been dealing with that for years. Think about what that actually looks like 5 years down the road. Not being able to walk the dog as far as you used to. Sitting down at the grocery store because your legs gave out halfway through the aisle. Your kids starting to talk about whether you should still be living alone. Not because you stopped trying, but because something you thought was helping was quietly working against you the entire time, and nobody caught it. That's not inevitable, but it happens. And it happens because the nuance here, that D without K2 at high doses causes problems, almost never gets communicated to the people who need to hear it. If you're taking vitamin D above 2,000 IU a day and you're not also taking vitamin K2 alongside it, that's the adjustment to make. The two work together. D drives calcium absorption, K2 directs it to the right places. You need both. Now, vitamin 4. This one is subtler and it involves a chain reaction rather than a direct effect. It's high-dose folic acid, synthetic vitamin B9. Folic acid supplements are widely recommended, particularly for people taking certain medications common in the over 60 population. And folic acid itself isn't the villain here. The problem is what it can hide. Here's how the chain works. Many people over 60 are quietly low in vitamin B12, often without knowing it, because B12 absorption naturally declines with age as stomach acid decreases. B12 deficiency causes serious nerve damage over time, including in the legs, weakness, balance problems, a heavy, uncoordinated feeling in the limbs that gets progressively worse. And this is the issue. High-dose folic acid can mask one of the early warning signs of B12 deficiency, a specific type of anemia that shows up in blood tests. So the blood test looks okay. The doctor isn't alarmed, but the neurological damage from B12 deficiency is still happening underneath, just without the warning flag that would have caught it. By the time the nerve damage in the legs becomes obvious enough to investigate properly, it may have been progressing silently for a year or more. And again, the person taking that folic acid supplement had no idea. They were just following the advice they'd been given. If you're taking folic acid at higher doses and you haven't had your B12 levels checked recently, that's worth asking for. A simple blood test. And if your B12 is low, that's very fixable, but you need to know about it first. The fifth vitamin is one that surprises people every time. It's calcium, specifically supplemental calcium taken in large doses on its own without the nutritional support it needs to actually work. Now, calcium is not a vitamin technically, and it's a mineral, but it gets sold and marketed right alongside vitamins in exactly the same way, and the misconceptions around it are just as damaging. So it earns its spot on this list. And this is where it goes wrong for a lot of people. Calcium supplements became hugely popular for people over 60, largely because of the connection to bone health. Makes sense on the surface. Bones need calcium. Take calcium. Simple. But the research over the last decade has complicated that picture significantly. Several large studies found that high-dose calcium supplements, particularly when taken without vitamin D and K2, don't reliably go to the bones. Instead, they raise calcium levels in the blood and increase the risk of deposits in the arteries and soft tissues. And here's the leg-specific issue that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Those calcium deposits in blood vessels reduce circulation. Less blood flow to the legs means less oxygen delivery to muscle tissue. Less oxygen means muscles fatigue faster, recover slower, and over time weaken at a rate that goes beyond what normal aging would explain. It also contributes to cramping, that painful, sudden seizing in the calf or thigh that a lot of people over 60 deal with and assume is just part of getting older. It often isn't. It's often a circulation and mineral balance problem. And a calcium supplement taken without the right cofactors is frequently part of that equation. The fix here isn't to stop getting calcium. It's to get it primarily from food, dairy, leafy greens, sardines with bones, where it comes packaged with the other nutrients that help your body actually use it. If you're taking a supplement, the dose matters. Anything above 500 to 600 milligrams a day in supplement form is where the research starts to raise flags. Now let's talk about the foods, because this is the piece that ties the whole picture together. The biggest food category working against your leg strength after 60 is ultra-processed food, and specifically the ones marketed as convenient, portion-controlled, senior-friendly options. Think frozen meals and packaged soups, flavored instant oatmeal, low-fat snack products that fill you up without feeding your muscles. The common thread running through almost all of them is high sodium, refined carbohydrates, and a near-complete absence of the protein your leg muscles need to maintain and rebuild. This matters more than people realize. After 60, your body becomes less efficient at using protein for muscle synthesis. Researchers call it anabolic resistance. Basically, you need more protein per meal than you did in your 40s to trigger the same muscle-building response. Most processed convenience foods deliver almost none, so you're eating, feeling full, and your muscles are sitting there with nothing to work with. The other food category worth calling out is vegetable oils, high in omega-6 fatty acids, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil. These are in almost everything processed. And in the quantities most people consume them, they push the body toward a chronic low-grade inflammatory state that accelerates exactly the kind of muscle tissue breakdown that sarcopenia produces. You're already fighting that process naturally. You don't need your cooking oil making it harder. This is where it all connects. The wrong supplements blunting your muscle adaptation, damaging your nerves, or misdirecting your minerals. And the wrong foods removing the protein your muscles need and stoking the inflammation that eats away at what's left. It's a compounding problem. And none of it announces itself loudly. It just shows up as legs that feel weaker every year, a little less reliable, a little harder to trust. So here's what to actually do with all of this. Go look at your supplement list today. Check your vitamin E dose, your B-complex B6 content, your vitamin D dose, and whether you have K2 alongside it, your folic acid if you're taking it, and your calcium supplement if you have one. That's 5 things. Write them down. Take the list to your doctor and have a real conversation about what you actually need versus what you've just been taking out of habit. Then take one look at your weekly food. Are you getting enough protein at each meal? Not just across the day, but at each sitting? Are processed convenience foods showing up more than a couple of times a week? Small adjustments here compound over time in a way that's genuinely measurable. Your legs are not done. That's the thing I want you to leave with. Sarcopenia is real, but it is not a sentence. People rebuild meaningful leg strength in their 60s, 70s, even their 80s, when they remove the things that are working against them and put the right things in place. The body responds. It just needs you to stop accidentally fighting it. If this gave you something useful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment, especially if you've already made one of these changes and noticed a difference. I want to know. Take care of yourselves.